Hi guys, hang on to your stylish hats. Today is the day that Viltrox is introducing a brand new line of lenses. That's right, not just a new lens, but the start of a new series of lenses, the EVO series. And this thing is meant to be budget friendly, yet still give you the bells and whistles of some of the much more premium lenses that Viltrox offers. It is small and lightweight. This is a full frame lens that is 340 grams. This is how sharp the lens is, and this is the autofocus of the lens, and this is the price of the lens. We need to talk about it. And Viltrox is sponsoring this video. They wanted me to present the new EVO lens to you, but I will still do all of my regular tests, and you can judge for yourself if this is a lens that you might be interested in, but of course, let those biases factor in where they may. This EVO series of lenses is meant to sit between the budget Air series and the more expensive Pro series from Viltrox. Now, Viltrox also has the Lab series, their big flagship fancy pants lenses, but this one sits nicely between the Pro and the Air. And let's just move the Air aside right now, because these two are really the lenses that have more in common, because this is an 85mm f1.4, the Pro lens from Viltrox, which is overall the best value 85 1.4 that you can get, in my not so humble opinion. This here is another 85 from Viltrox. It's an 85mm f2, and as you can see, because they went with f2, you can get such a smaller lens compared to the 1.4, but you still get a great portrait lens. Like, look at this. This is the Sony 85mm f1.8, and it's still a nice bit bigger. This is 375 grams versus the 340 grams, but as you can see, a much chunkier lens, and this one is not a great lens. It is getting quite old, and the autofocus is pretty slow on it. Not my favorite lens to use. I would choose this Viltrox all day long over this Sony lens, and this Sony lens costs more than twice what this Viltrox lens costs. And I will tell you right off the bat, this is one of my favorite lenses that I have tested this year. I love the form factor. I love the premium feel of this lens, especially at that $275 price point. But you may be wondering, what about the 1.4 Pro lens from Viltrox? What does that look like compared to an f2? So these are the two side-by-side shots of each lens wide open, so you can see the difference in the background blur from a 1.4 versus an f2. And here is another shot of f2 versus f1.8. Now, as you can see, when you're using a full frame camera, you are still getting a really shallow depth of field at f2. If you want ultimate creamy, blurry goodness back there, the 1.4 would be the way to go. Of course, it's a bigger, heavier lens that is far more expensive. And this is one of the things that I love about the Viltrox company. No matter what your style, no matter what your budget, they're always trying to find lenses that suit more and more people. And I know a lot of people will want to go for a lens like this because they're getting a premium portrait lens that gives you a nice shallow depth of field at f2, but it won't break the bank, looks great on your camera, and takes really, really good shots. The build quality on the lens feels just like a miniature version of the Pro series, which is my favorite build quality going in the lens market. You have a clicky aperture ring that can be declicked if you want it nice and smooth. You have an autofocus to manual focus switch, focus hole button, and a smooth turning, well-damped focus ring. You have a USB-C port on the back. What is missing from the Pro line is a big red rubber gasket. This one doesn't have that rubber gasket for weather sealing, and you have a 58mm filter thread and a deep circular lens hood to help you with flares and glares. The lens is razor sharp in the center as well as out to the corners, even if you're wide open at f2. It does get a tiny bit sharper as you stop it down, but not much because it is already impeccably sharp at f2. You will see some pretty heavy vignetting at f2 that goes away entirely at f5.6, but if you are at f2, you could just do about a plus 40 in Lightroom and that would clear that up, or you can wait for the Lightroom profile that will be available shortly. In terms of distortion, there may be a hint of pincushion distortion, but it's really hard to see with the naked eye, so I see no reason to correct any form of distortion. When it comes to autofocus, the EVO series is not using the VCM motors that you find in the Pro series and the Lab series. It is using stepping motors, but they are remarkably good. They are quiet, dead silent, really, instantaneously fast. It just grabs focus, no hesitation, no fluttering, whether it's AFC, AFS, or tracking. It just does a fantastic job. And you don't hear any of the clunking that you might hear in the Lab series or the Pro series. Listen to this. So that's the Pro series. Because of the VCM floating motors there, you can hear some of the elements, whereas with the EVO series, there's nothing. So even though this is not using the VCM motors, I see no difference in the autofocus between this and the Pro series lenses or the Lab series. The Pro series and Lab series, they have big glass elements that need to be moved around very, very quickly, so they need those VCM motors, whereas these smaller lenses like this EVO series or the Air series, they can handle autofocus just fine with stepping motors because there's less to move around. Bokeh is beautiful on the lens, nothing distracting back there, nice and smooth, good fall off from things that are in focus to out of focus, and the bokeh balls are magnificent, magnificent balls on this EVO lens. No onion ringing, no haloing, no weird color fringing. There is some cat's eyeing in the corners of your image, which is to be expected with an 85mm, but the center, very nice, smooth, round orbs. Chromatic aberration is well controlled on this lens. Lateral chromatic aberration, there's almost none to speak of. Even when you're pixel peeping, it's hard to find any lateral chromatic aberration. When it comes to the loca, the longitudinal chromatic aberration, you do see a bit of loca at f2 and at f2.8. It's completely gone by f4, but even at f2, it is pretty minimal when you consider this is an 85mm lens, so great job, Viltrox. Comparing the Viltrox Pro to the EVO at the same apertures, f2 and f2.8, a very similar amount of loca can be seen. Something else that's very similar on these two lenses is focus breathing. You do see some focus breathing on both lenses when you are racking focus from very near to very far away. So if you want to use this lens for video work or you're doing focus stacking in post, then you have to be aware of that. The lens does have a pretty deep lens hood. It is trying to mitigate some of the flaring and glaring because this lens is a bit prone to flares and glares. You do have to watch very bright things coming into your frame. If you have a nice bright midday sun, you will want to keep on that lens hood because this lens does have a tendency to flare a little bit. I would say it is an average performance for an 85. Still a lot better than my Sony 85mm in terms of flaring and glaring and ghosting control, but not as good as a premium lens like a Sony G Master 85, let's say. The sun stars on the lens are okay, nothing to write home about, but it's always nice to be able to get a sun star in your photo if you want it. Just like the 85 Pro, the color rendering on the EVO is fantastic. Everything just pops right out of frame. I really love the way the images look. You hardly have to do any editing at all to get a really nice image straight out of camera. So what we have here is a small compact lens, 340 grams, with excellent build quality and wonderful images coming out of it. Autofocus that is as good as any third-party lens, all for a very attractive price, $275 USD. And check the links to see if there are any coupons that I can provide to help you save a couple of extra bucks if you're interested. Let me know down below, are you interested? Is this a lens that you would be looking at? And if not, what lens would you be looking at? And maybe I can do some kind of video for your smiling faces. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.